from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased to have with me Mark. You are the CEO of 1E. See, I did tell you before, the way I like to do it is I give it to my guests to introduce themselves because I believe no one can introduce someone else better than themselves. So, Mark, thank you for being on the show. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And it's an absolute delight and a pleasure to be here. And thanks very much for inviting us on. We're excited to share with you some of the things we're doing here at 1E. So, yeah, my name is Mark Banfield. I'm the CEO here at 1E. I've been the CEO for just over 2 years, and I'm having a good time enjoying leading this company. And we're doing some really exciting stuff in the enterprise around an area that we're going to talk about today, which is called digital employee experience.
Great. Thank you very much again, Mark, for being here today. Actually, it's the first time on the show. So we discuss about different experiences. So we discuss, for example, about user experience. We discuss about customer experience. But the first time we're going to discuss about both customer and employee experience and digital experience. So if you can tell us, Mark, at the beginning, what is, employee experience and digital experience?
Sure, absolutely. Well, yeah, let me start by saying, I can't think of a job, any kind of job really, that doesn't depend upon technology. In the last 10 years, especially, the digital transformation really has taken over. And I can't think of any role that doesn't depend on technology on a day-to-day basis, whether that be in healthcare, whether that be in finance, whether that be in teaching, you name it, any role is dependent on technology. Now, right. Your ability to do that job and to do it well and to be productive for the company you work for is very dependent on the experience that you are provided from the technology that you use. So digital employee experience is a relatively new term that really describes the overall environment that an employee has as to how they do their job. So it's looking at measuring and monitoring and tracking the digital experience for an employee. In nuts and bolts, what does that actually mean? In our case, what that means is that we have an agent that sits on the device that monitors and measures every single digital experience that happens on that device. It looks at the productivity, the performance, the security, the reliability, the use of applications, the use of network. Anything that an employee touches on that device, we're looking at that and we're understanding it. Importantly, and this is the key part about what this is, the real crux of the value of this technology, is we're able to identify when there's friction, when there's a frustration for an employee because of a digital friction. That could be application crashes, that could be can't access particular applications or services, that could be a kind of intermittent, slow kind of response time to the things that you're using. Whatever it may be, and there's many, many thousands of things it could be, we're able to identify that friction. And the more important thing is we're able to remediate and actually fix the problem, importantly in real time. In that instant moment, we're able to fix the problem for an employee. So what does that mean? It means that we provide a better experience for employees, and we can ensure that they're productive and they can do their job. The second thing is we can ensure that it's a more secure environment. So, security and experience go hand in hand. Bad security, bad experience. Too much security, potentially too much of a bad experience. So more secure environment, as well as a more business aligned IT organization. What do we mean by business aligned? It's really about ensuring that IT can solve these problems in a very, very quick fashion without incurring massive costs in the service desk. And over the last 5 years, what's happened in IT and end user computing is that the costs to service employees has gone up tremendously. They've added more and more costs into their service desk in order to support users. And they don't have the technology, the platform, the tools to enable support users correctly. And that's where 1E comes in. It's about this digital employee experience approach, having a platform that allows you to react instantaneously in real time to resolve employees' issues. Hopefully that gives you an understanding.
Perfect. That's very clear explanation, I would say. Now, you mentioned I've seen, the article on your website where you mentioned a correlation between the employee experience that you just, talked about and customer experience. Like, can you a little bit, shed some light about this relationship? And maybe if you can give us some examples on, how 1E can enhance this, relation or correlation, let's call it.
Yeah, no, absolutely happy to. Well, Mehmet, one of the things that I always say is that, you can't provide a 3 Michelin star customer experience unless you provide a 3 Michelin star employee experience. It starts with the employee. That's the famous Richard Branson quote, right? Which is like, if you look after your employees, they'll look after your customers. So it starts with providing a great environment for your employees and a great kind of basis for them to do their job. So the two are intrinsically linked. Good employee experience results in a very good customer experience. There's good data around that. To give you some more anecdotal examples, I mean, we work with a major manufacturing, sort of automotive manufacturing company. And one of the things they were able to identify is that the downtime that they experienced on the production line was so severe that by implementing our technology, they were able to guarantee that they could produce more cars every month. So there's a direct result between the business output in terms of the actual business performance and the employee performance. So another example might be, imagine anyone that's in a customer-facing role, be it, in sales, in marketing, in some kind of financial services, whatever it may be. If you're dependent on the technology to interact with your customer and that technology is glitchy, it doesn't work, or there's a problem and you're not able to fix it in real time, now you impact a customer relationship. You impact the ability to provide a service to that customer. So in every example, could it be healthcare? You think about like a nurse or a doctor that's using technology to access data records, medical records in real time. If they're unable to access that technology, they're unable to rely upon that technology, now they're potentially damaging a patient's health and they're damaging the potential health of a patient. So these are the kind of examples of almost in any industry, in any vertical, you can think of examples of how employee experience impacts the customer experience. And as I said at the beginning, because so much of our jobs these days are dependent on technology, what organizations are starting to see is that you've got to really get the digital experience correct. And you've got to really invest in making sure it's a great experience, a great digital experience for your employees, in order to make them productive, to make them happy, as well as just be able to do their job.
Great. That's a great explanation, I would say. Now, you mentioned also about having the right, IT service and workplace tools. So how much this is also important, to have in the environment to make sure that this experience, reach to the level that the management or the executives want it to be.
So just so I make sure I understand your question, Grace. So the kind of tools and technologies that employees are being provided to do their job is what you're asking about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So look, I mean, we live in a world today where most of the things we do on our device are a window into a cloud. So a window into a cloud application, a cloud service. More and more organizations are moving to SaaS type solutions to deliver business value within their own organization. So providing the right tools and technologies, both in terms of hardware as well as the software to your employees is critical to make sure that you give them the tools they need to do their job. The bit where digital employee experience, that's one part of digital employee experience, is making sure you've got the right technologies in place. The second part is to make sure they're operational and working. If you think about you think about for example, someone in an operating theatre, a doctor in an operating theatre, performing very, very difficult work. I mean, you wouldn't dream of giving them a plugged instrument to do their job. Yet in IT, we're very often providing employees with technology that is substandard. It's not performing at the rate that's required. And the impact is dramatic. I mean, just to give you a couple of statistics that are quite interesting, Gartner ran a survey that said that 42% of employees, which is a whopping huge number, 42%, nearly half of all employees with negative IT experiences plan to leave the company. So, I think we can all attest to having bad digital experiences or IT experiences. And of course, we often blame IT for that. And actually, the impact is, from an employee perspective, is they get frustrated, they end up wanting to leave the business. So it's really important to get the right technologies in place, the right kind of SaaS solutions, the right kind of collaboration tooling, as well as making sure that those things are operational. It's great to put in collaboration tooling like Teams or Zoom or whatever it may be. But if your employees are spending most of their time frustrated because it doesn't work, because of a configuration issue or because of a network issue or because of some kind of cache issue on the device, not being able to react in real time and solve those issues is really detrimental to an employee's ability to be productive and their health, frankly, in the job.
Yeah, Mark, you mentioned a couple of things, and now, after the pandemic, it became a fact that everyone talks about the hybrid model. How difficult it is to measure, actually, without having the proper tools to measure this digital experience. Because when you are sitting in the office, and I know this because I was sitting in an IT department 10 years back, and we were all close to each other's, our customers were close to us, people who we used to serve. But when you are into a remote, how this become more difficult, and how you can help the customers, your customers as 1E, to cover also this new acceptable model, which is the hybrid or even sometimes completely remote model?
Yeah, very good question. And, for the longest time, IT operations has survived upon meeting SLAs, service level agreements, like the network is 99.9%, or the service we provide, we respond within X number of hours when there's a problem from our service desk. And what we're seeing is that the forward-thinking organizations that are implementing platforms like ours, they're rethinking the way they provide a service to their employees, to their customers. Their customers, the IT operations team that looks after employees' devices, their customer is the employee. They're rethinking how to provide that service. And what they're moving to is what's called XLAs, experience level agreements. Now, one of the things we're able to do with our platform is we have an agent that's constantly live and constantly on. And it's constantly analyzing all the data in the device, the telemetry data, and it's providing a score. And the score is made up of stability, performance, reliability, all these different metrics, all these different log files that we're collecting. The telemetry we're collecting is very, very in-depth. And we're able to understand what the score is, the overall score. We calibrate that data. We understand how well are we providing that digital experience to that user. And then what we're able to do is start to react when we start to see a fall off in that score. So I'll give you a real life example. I was on the road for a couple of weeks, and anyone that works in end user computing will know, particularly in a Microsoft environment, there's this concept of drift. You end up with drift on the device. You access different networks, you access different Wi-Fi routers. You install new software. There's just drift that happens on the device, and things start performing worse, things start performing poorly. When I came back from a 2-week trip, our head of IT called me up and said, by the way, we just ran, just to let you know, more anecdotal, we just ran some remediations on your device. We noticed that your score dropped by 25% whilst you were on the road. And we know that the drivers needed upgrading, this needed configuring, there needed to be some configuration files. There was a particular one of your security products was out of compliance. There's lots of things that went wrong. So, this this is very common when people work remote, because in the world when everyone was in an office, logging onto the same network, IT had a much more control over a walled garden. It's not the same anymore. People are connecting from home, they're connecting from different environments, and therefore the ability to provide a consistent service and a consistent digital employee experience is critical.
Yeah, 100%. And, this is a feedback I receive from a lot of people. When they are on travel mode, it's a big headache, a lot of emails going to help desk. This is not working, this is slow, I can't log into this, I cannot log into that. This is resonated a lot. Now, you mentioned, Mark, at the beginning, and I'm curious to know about the metrics, that are on a high level, of course. I know there are a lot of bits, inside from, the deep dive perspective of tech, but on a high level, what are the main metrics that you collect to give us a score? Because you mentioned now score, right? So
yeah.
How are these, how do you determine which metrics you should measure in the first place? And what are usually the main important ones that we need to focus on, a customer need to focus on?
Sure. Well, Mehmet, it's, we have 25 years experience of working in device management. This area of digital employee experience is not exactly new for 1E. And actually, a little story for you is that people often ask me, where does the name 1E come from? Well, if you go back to when our founder, Samir Karai, started the business 25 years ago, he came out of Microsoft, working in Microsoft, and he saw an opportunity to create some software that allowed him to do a very specific thing, which was, if you remember the blue screen of death, which luckily doesn't happen as much anymore, but it still does happen. On that blue screen of death, there was some syntax, which 00000.1E. And his vision and his concept was, and his kind of like desire was to create a company that would take away that experience for users. And that was really the start of the journey. So the reason I tell you that story is that we had a lot of experience of understanding these operating systems, understanding what good looks like, what doesn't look good, and understanding how to read the data, as you talked about, the metrics. So to give you a couple of ideas, the kind of things we're looking at are, we're understanding the performance of the device, the reliability of the device, the productivity of the device, by looking at all kinds of metrics. So we're doing telemetry, collecting telemetry data, we're doing synthetic testing, logging into applications, checking the speed, understanding where the latency is so we can understand where there's a problem. Furthermore than that, one of the things we're doing now is using AI. So what we're doing is we're able to look at the anomalies that are happening on the device. So when we see a spike in a CPU or something like that, we're able to correlate that with a particular impact that's happening to the user at that point in time. And we can even pop up a message to say, we notice your device is running poorly, and we'd like them to confirm, because if they can confirm, then we can make sure we have that correlation and we can remediate off the back of that. So we're using predictive analytics, and we're using sort of machine learning to really understand where those issues are on the device.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great to enlighten, on that, because business leaders, they want to understand how they can, get this experience to the maximum, and the ones you mentioned are really very important. Now, talking about business leaders, Mark, like from your perspective, what are you seeing? The main challenges they face to implement a more positive digital experience.
Yeah, so I think that one of the challenges is that this technology that I'm talking to you about today, whilst 1E has been around for a long time and we've had lots of different products, this area of digital employee experience is quite a new area, a new term. It's a relatively new category. The technology we're providing, this real-time automation platform, is a new way of thinking about managing devices, but it's an old problem. It's not like IT has not been trying to solve this problem for many years, but historically they've used different approaches to solve these issues. So it's very common for an enterprise to be they have a service desk that can respond to users when they call in and can help them. They use technology such as remote control. They use things like knowledge-based articles. Well, The problem with that is it's a fairly archaic way of dealing with many, many thousands of users. For example, let me maybe illuminate that with a bit of an example. So if you have an issue whereby you have a certain set of credentials on a device that are required in order to allow someone to access your VPN, could be you need this certificate, you need this executable file in this particular location. For highly secure organizations, they're very, very strict about having the right credentials on the device, the right compliance to allow someone to access a VPN. Well, today, if you're working for one of these organizations and for whatever reason that compliance isn't right on the device, the only way that you can get that kind of support from your company is to call the help desk, for them to do a remote control, if they're even able to do a remote control, to send them a knowledge base article, which says that here's a 2-page article that says you need to install this certificate, you need to do this, you need to do that. That's not a great way of solving a customer's issues. Now, instead with us, of course, what they're able to do is actually put an agent there that sits there, identifies immediately when those things are not in compliance, and does what we call a guaranteed state. It actually uses a rule to force the device back into compliance to allow that user to log onto the VPN. So there's a real life example of something that we solve every day for organizations. The problem is, this is a new area. It requires investment. It requires a different approach to how you think about managing the employees' devices. It's an automation platform. It's a very powerful platform. You can put out rules, instructions, automations that can take control of all of the devices in your fleet. So it requires a different approach, and it requires a certain investment in terms of the skills and learning. Luckily here at 1E, we're able to provide some additional services along with the software. So what we call a digital employee experience expert that sits alongside the organization to provide them with the skills and the know-how and the learning to best take advantage of this technology.
Yeah, that's great. Out of curiosity, and as someone who worked, in the consulting part, and this is my favorite one, how fast can a client, start to sense what we call the return of investment? Like how fast they can see the difference?
Yeah, of course it varies, but what we have done, and one of the things we do with any potential customer is we run what's called a proof of value. We don't call it a proof of concept because it's partly a proof of concept to test the technology, but what you're really trying to do is prove the ROI. So what we do is we look through the service desk, we understand what are the highest priority tickets that we could automate. Which are the tickets to remove from the service desk? Because one of the big values we provide is self-healing. We stop a ticket from ever being raised by solving the problem before the user even knows they have a problem. So we look through that and we run what's called a proof of value, so that when we then implement the software, we're able to very accurately measure what the impact is of that technology and when it's been implemented. Now, we've collected a lot of data, and on average, what we see is about a 5-month payback in terms of the investment that's made. About a 5-month payback, typically somewhere in the region of about 600% 3-year ROI. So there's really significant payback that you can get with this type of technology. And I think, I challenge any CIO or any IT leader not to have a look at this product and see that there's tremendous value that could be provided to the organization. Reduction in tickets is one thing. I mean, it's a hard cost saving that you could really measure very accurately. But the other things you can do is look at things like hardware refresh. So one of the things, most organizations will refresh their devices for their employees every 3 years or 4 years. And the question is do you really need to? Is the device up? Should you replace the device? And if you don't need to, I mean, arguably, you could sweat that asset longer. You could allow that device to be used longer by the employee and therefore have a significant impact in your CapEx savings. So we have customers that have had tremendous impact in terms of what we call smart device refresh. They've become smarter about using analytics and experience data to understand, do I really need to replace that device here and now? And the last one is software reclaim. So typically organizations deploy software left and right everywhere, and deploy licenses. And they're unable to have the ability to understand whether they really should be paying for those licenses. So one of the things we're able to do is identify the usage of that software. Look at what's the entitlement, what's installed, what are people using, and very often they can find savings by reclaiming unused software and effectively going back and reclaiming that software licensing. So lots of benefits here in terms of ROI.
Yeah, great. And I love what you mentioned about POC. You know, I used to be a LSE and I hate the word POC, not because I don't like to do POCs, but because I'm telling it's not a new concept that I'm trying to prove. I'm trying to prove actually, that my product fits your environment, though it has a value for you. So this is why I love the word POV more than POC, 100%. You mentioned, Mark, about, AI, machine learning, and, predictive analysis. Like, what are other technologies emerging technologies that, you think they can also contribute, to enhance the digital employee experience?
Yeah, obviously there's what we're doing with remediation and automation, and that's really about fixing, as we said, fixing the issue in real time. Some of the trends we see really are things like virtual desktop and virtualized desktop environments. So that's a big trend we're seeing. We're seeing more and more people shift to a virtual desktop environment because it provides them the ability to provide a better service, the ability to provide a more consistent service, a more secure service. So that's a technology that we're seeing increasing. Certainly in the pandemic, we saw more people accelerate their investment in virtual desktop environments. And in certain industries, it's much more common. Financial services, for sure, healthcare are two of the biggest ones where those organizations are looking to invest in these virtual desktop environments in order to drive a more consistent and a better service to their employees. Yeah,
that's good use case, especially the virtual desktops. So it's something to go to, I would say, nowadays for any CIO. Of course, as you said, it's easy to deploy, cheaper. Now, looking ahead, Mark, how do you envision, the evolution of the digital workplaces, and where do you see the role of 1E playing in that landscape?
Yeah, great question. I think that, we are, as we said, we're more and more dependent on technology, and it will continue to accelerate. And with the advent of AI and all these technologies, we are going to see organizations, their employees become more and more dependent on the technology they use to do their job. So the investment and the importance of ensuring that digital employee experience becomes more and more important. Certainly, it's my prediction and my vision that eventually we end up with a scenario where, there is no bad IT day ever again, where you never come in, log on at home or go into the office and be frustrated and feel that things aren't working. I foresee an environment where it's completely autonomous, where it's a intelligent system, where the technology is able to self-heal, is able to identify when there's a friction, when there's a frustration, and remediate and fix things autonomously. And we're very much pioneering that path here at 1E, and we're very much on that journey to provide that autonomous computing environment. But that's how I see the future of digital employee experience. It's not enough to just monitor the problem and observe the problem. Many people provide great dashboards, and monitoring isn't new, as you know. It's been around for a long time, and there's lots and lots of monitoring companies that provide dashboards and graphs about the performance and things of a device or an environment. But what's really important is fixing the problem. That's, for me, the most important thing. And what I'd like to see one day is that there is no bad IT day. There's no need to call a service desk, or if you are calling a service desk, is to get advice on how to use a product better, or to get training or something like that. Not just calling up and saying, can you help me fix my VPN, or can you help me make Teams run better? That's a bad situation we've got to in the industry within IT. And therefore, what we're really focused on is pioneering this. There's a better way. There's a better way for organizations to provide IT. And importantly, for IT, it puts IT right at the forefront of being a strategic enabler, a strategic change agent for organizations, because IT starts to set the agenda. It starts to empower employees. It starts to become a part of the organization that's really enabling employees to do great work, to give them the tools they need to do great work and to advance the company. So, yeah, for me, it's kind of, it's a great opportunity for IT to become a real strategic enabler.
Yeah, great, Mark. I really, agree. I'm biased a little bit again because I was one of the biggest, fighter. Because I was saying, IT should not be a firefighter mode all the time. IT, it should be driving business, for new initiatives, and it should not be wasting its resources on, as you said, like, can you fix my microphone sometime? Even like silly things that could be solved autonomously. So I'm biased here, and yeah, I agree with you on this. Now, any upcoming projects, initiatives that you are particularly excited that you can maybe share with us today, Mark?
Yeah, our investment in AI is quite different to how others are doing it, and we've taken a very measured approach as to how we're thinking about AI. And the way that we're doing it really is how do you find out when there's a user frustration? Well, you either wait until the user calls into the help desk and complains about it, or you run a survey, right? And you run surveys and you run sentiment analysis and you see, okay, what's the reaction from my users? How are my users feeling about the service we're providing? The problem with that is, employees don't tend to respond to surveys, and the hit rate is very, very low. So we need to find a better way to understand, where is the sentiment from users? So what we've come up with is this concept of synthetic sentiment. So what we're doing is using AI on the device, and the agent is constantly analyzing and looking for these anomalies, as I talked about earlier, and then it's doing this kind of like pattern analysis to understand when it sees a performance issue on the device, it's then linking that to what's happening to the friction that's happening to the user at that point in time. And we'll interact with the user at that point in time, and we'll ask them questions as and when that experience starts to go bad and when they start to see drift on the device. So this drift detection technology is what we're developing. So it's a kind of almost an intelligent system that's able to identify the moment that there's drift on the device, because drift leads to friction and friction leads to frustration. And so the ability to get ahead of that, be predictive, and to understand where the friction is going to turn into frustration and then remediate that problem ahead of that point in time is really what we're focused on. So we're very, very focused on this sort of like AI approach, and we're taking a very big investment in that. And we're taking it very seriously. We're currently running this in a proof of concept with many customers at the moment. And yeah, we're very focused on providing that more autonomous kind of environment.
Yeah, great for sharing, and thank you for sharing this information, Mark. Like, as we come to an end, then maybe it's an awkward question, but is there anything that I should have covered, Mark? Is there anything that you wish that I had asked you? And feel free to answer it also.
No. I mean, you asked some great questions, and I enjoyed the conversation very much. I mean, yeah, I think you touched upon the most important area. I mean, in the current economic climate, what's really important is that the technology the organizations find, it needs to prove an ROI. And, this remediation capability we have, the biggest value of it is, yes, it makes life easier for IT teams. Yes, it makes employees happier. But what it really does is pay for itself, because it has a demonstrable ROI. So I'm glad we talked about that. For me, that's one of the most important things to get across, because, it's really important that we're able to demonstrate that to customers, that we can provide this return on investment.
Yeah, and I think people can find more about on 1e.com, right?
They can. If you go www.1e.com, there's a variety of information on there. You can learn about the product, but by all means, drop us a note. Connect via the website. We'd love to get you on a demo, show you the capabilities. It really is one of the most, amazing demonstrations you can see. It's quite a phenomenal product. And to say it knocks people off their chair is an understatement. It really is quite a phenomenal piece of technology. And the speed with which you can query tens and tens of thousands of devices. And this one thing about, maybe just to lastly mention, is that
Sure.
What we're doing here is a very different architecture to how most monitoring products work. Normally, with monitoring, you send something to a device, you wait for a response, you compute that in a database before you display a result. This is a distributed computing environment. The agents are on and live, and we're just querying them in real time. So when you query 20,000 endpoints, you're querying the endpoint. You're not going through a database. So what that means is unrivaled speed. I mean, the speed of this is incredible. And one of the things about that is speed's really important when it's a security issue and when it's an experience issue. Like, for example, now us doing this it's not Zoom, you've got your own application that you're using here. But, if for whatever reason you had a problem on your device and this was not working well, it matters right there and then. It doesn't matter in 20 minutes because 20 minutes is too late. It matters now. And that's what's key. Sorry, I'm talking about the product again, but I'm
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's completely fine, Mark. And this is exactly the goal is to just get this information out. So you don't say, hey, I wish that I mentioned this. So great, and thank you for adding this. I will make sure that the website is in the show notes also as well. And so people who are curious about it, or maybe they have some needs, so they can reach out to you and your team. And Mark, again, thank you very much for being with me today. I really enjoyed the conversation. Tons of information and insights from what you are seeing from your customers and in the market. And I think what's the most exciting part is how we will interact in the future from an IT service desk perspective and what is ahead, the AI part. So all this was very informative, and thank you for sharing that. And as usual, this is how I end my episode. So it's for the audience. Guys, thank you for tuning in. I'm really enjoying, the feedbacks from you, and keep them coming. I hope also you would enjoy. If you have questions to Mark, you can, route them to me. I'll pass it to Mark. Don't worry about that. Yeah, and thank you for tuning in. We will see you again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.